Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my top 10 waiver wire ads for week number 10 of the 2022 fantasy football season. If you're looking for a more in-depth, deeper pool of waiver wire ads, make sure you head on over to Notorious Fantasy by Stokastic later tonight. I will have a deeper pool, like a deeper set of players to add off of the waiver wire. In today's video, when we're talking about the quick hitters, you're going to get a lot of information here. It's going to be a little bit quicker about my top 10 waiver wire ads. But before we could get into things, if you do end up enjoying today's video and you are new to the channel, make sure you smash that subscribe button down below. And whether you are new to the channel or not, make sure you hit that like button down below. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. And if you have any questions about week number 10, please make sure you ask down below in the comment section or in the Discord linked in the pinned comments. I love you guys all so much. So let's get on in to my week number 10 top 10 waiver wire ads. We begin with my number one player to be picking up off the waiver wire this week, Jeff Wilson Jr., running back of the Miami Dolphins, going up against the Cleveland Browns this week, currently owned in 51% of leagues on Yahoo Fantasy. So if you play on NFL, ESPN, CBS, any of those other fantasy football platforms, then the ownership percentage is going to be slightly different. But I will note in some cases there might be a drastic difference in ownership percentage depending on the player and website that you play on. Last week, in week numero 9, Jeff Wilson was the RB9 on the week in half PPR in that game up against the Bears in Chicago. He had 9 rushes for 51 yards, 3 receptions on 3 targets for 21 yards, and 1 touchdown. In terms of snap count, Jeff Wilson led 28-26, and in terms of touches, Jeff Wilson led Mostert 12-9. So in my opinion, this means that Jeff Wilson is going to be the guy going forward for the Miami Dolphins. But I do not think that this means that Jeff Wilson is by far and away the number one running back on the team. We are still going to see Jeff Wilson Jr. get touches, but with how the waiver wire is this week, where there isn't really any super hot commodity to be picking up, Jeff Wilson is the number one player to be adding on the week, because you definitely can start him in this matchup up against the Cleveland Browns, but we all know deep down that Raheem Mostert is still going to get touches, and that could end up screwing over Jeff Wilson Jr. Next up, we move to Greg Dulcich, tight end of the Denver Broncos, going up against the Atlanta Titans, the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee, currently owned in 34% of leagues on Yahoo. Now, the Broncos were on bye, just like a million other teams last week in week number 9, so we have to go ahead and hop in the time machine and go back to week number 8 for his stats. In that game, he was the tight end number 9 in half PPR, going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Technically, the game was at Jacksonville, but we all know that game took place in London. In that game, he had 4 receptions on 5 targets for 87 yards, and ever since being activated by the Denver Broncos, he has now had 3 solid games in a row. Now, I understand trusting Russell Wilson has been basically impossible this season, and this Denver Broncos offense has been absolute dog shit. But at the end of the day, if Greg Dulcich is still going to be seeing a decent amount of targets, if Russell Wilson continues to like to throw the ball to the tight end position, then Greg Dulcich needs to be owned in fantasy football. And this week up against the Tennessee Titans and going forward until he ends up fucking up, he is a must-start tight end in my mind. At number 3, we have Gus Bus Edwards of the Baltimore Ravens. This week, the Ravens are on a bye. He is currently owned in 51% of leagues. Now, Edwards was injured in week number 8 up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in prime time, so in that matchup, he didn't really do all that well. He is doubtful to play tonight on Monday Night Football as I record this up against the Ravens, and I would honestly be shocked if he ends up playing in that game. In his last full actual game was up against the Cleveland Browns in week number 7. In that game, he had 1 target for no receptions, 16 carries for 66 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So going up against, obviously, the bye, a really tough opponent going up against the bye. Some teams lose to the bye. I'm sure if the bye put up any points, the Broncos probably would have lost to him this week or in week number 9. But while he's not playing this week, J.K. Dobbins is probably going to eventually come back, but to be honest with you, he's probably a shell of the guy that we thought he would be. And once Gus Edwards returns, he's going to be the number 1 running back on the team. So I think he is worthy of a stash. At number 4, we have DeAndre Carter of the LA Chargers, wide receiver, going up against the San Francisco 49ers in San Francisco this week, currently owned in 31% of leagues. Now, last week, he was the wide receiver number 27 in half PPR, going up against the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta. Having 5 receptions on 6 targets for 53 yards, with Mike Williams out for at least the next couple of weeks, and with Keenan Allen basically nowhere to be fucking found. Every week, I do this mental gymnastics exercise where I talk myself into the fact that, ooh, Keenan Allen's finally coming back, and then the guy never shows back up. Maybe he plays this week, but I don't really have confidence in that. So, with Mike Williams gone, with Keenan Allen out, Carter is the number 2 wide receiver in this offense behind Joshua Palmer. Now, obviously, they have Everett, they have Eckler, but at the end of the day, up against the 49ers, if they want to even have somewhat of a fight in this game, Justin Herbert, the pervert, is going to have to throw the ball at a really high rate, and I think that means that DeAndre Carter has the upside to be a top 32 wide receiver in back-to-back weeks. This week, up against, I will give it to him, a tough 49ers defense. At number 5, we have OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr., wide receiver of, doesn't have a team yet, but it seems like he's going to be signed very, very soon. 23% owned on Yahoo. Now, Jay Glazer of Fox reported that we should see Odell Beckham Jr. being ready and cleared extremely soon, as early as this week. Based upon the research that I have done, it would appear that the teams that are most interested in bringing in Odell Beckham Jr. are the Bills, the Rams, the Cowboys, and the San Francisco 49ers. Now, obviously, maybe he signs with the fucking Jets or something, right? I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe some other team brings him in, but in my opinion, it's either going to end up being the Bills, the Rams, the Cowboys, or the 49ers. The best landing spot for him, in my mind, is with the Dallas Cowboys, and if he lands with the Dallas Cowboys, and people don't pick him up now, he is going to be impossible to pick up because the second he signs with the Cowboys, someone is going to scoop him up. I understand that, if he plays next week or the week after, maybe you don't want to jam him in his first game, right? But, you let him you watch things from the outside, you watch him play, but this guy really could be a top 10 league-winning wide receiver down the stretch when he is signed. So make sure you go ahead and pick up Odell Beckham Jr. now before it is too late. Before we move on into the number 6 player to be adding off the waiver wire this week, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our sponsor over at DraftKings Sportsbook. They have been on the screen this whole entire video. If you bet $5 on any sport pregame money line, and that bet wins, if you are a new user on DraftKings, clicking on the link in the video description or in the pinned comment, you will get $200 in free bets if that bet wins on DraftKings Sportsbook. And since the bet has to win, I want to give you guys picks that I think are going to win. Now, obviously, anything could happen, right? Something crazy could happen and one of these teams could lose. But in my opinion, the best way to find something that is as close to a guaranteed win as you can get is in college football. This week, Tennessee up against Missouri. I'd be taking Tennessee money line, or Michigan versus Nebraska. Michigan money line. You bet $5 on either of those teams, and if they win, and you're a new user, clicking on the link in the video description, you will get $200 if that team wins. $200 of free bets. So make sure you guys check that out. The offer isn't going to last forever, so make sure you take advantage of it before it is too late. At number 6, we have Rachaad with 2 A's White of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, running back of that team, going up against the Seahawks. 34% owned on Yahoo Fantasy. He was the RB30 in half PPR last week, tied with David Montgomery, who had a not-so-hot game. Week 9 up against the Rams. He had 8 carries for 27 yards, 3 receptions on 3 targets for 7 yards. We are officially at the part of the season where the playoffs, you smell that? The playoffs are close. The playoffs are getting closer and closer and closer. So make sure that you get your handcuff. If you have Leonard Fournette, you better have fucking Rachaad White, because if Leonard Fournette goes down, Rachaad White will be elevated to potential fantasy football superstardom, especially if the Bucs take what happened against the Rams, they build upon that, and they start looking really good, then Rachaad White has the potential to be a league-winning running back. If something happens to Fournette, knock on wood, I don't root for injuries, not rooting for Fournette to get hurt, but you need to be looking at your handcuffs right now, and Rachaad White is the perfect example of that. And even if you don't have Fournette, you just have a free bench spot, make sure you go ahead and get Rachaad White, because that upside is immense. At number 7, we have DPJ, Donovan Peoples-Jones of the Cleveland Browns, going up against the Miami Dolphins in Miami. 21% owned on Yahoo. Now, the Browns were on bye in week number 9. Again, there's like a million fucking teams on bye last week. It was the bye apocalypse. We have to go ahead and hop back in that time machine yet again to look to week number 8 for his stats in that matchup up against the Cincinnati Bengals in prime time. 4 receptions on 4 targets 4 for 4 like he was at Wendy's. I think I held up a 5 that time. So 4 for 4 like he was at Wendy's for 81 receiving yards. We just saw the Miami Dolphins defense. Now, I'm a fan of the Miami Dolphins defense, and the team as a whole got absolutely bent over a table and sodomized 50 Shades of Grey style. I genuinely believe that Donovan Peoples-Jones could have a huge performance here. Now, but Nick, they have Amari Cooper. I know they have Amari Cooper. They have 9-inch Nicholas Chubb. They have Kareem Hunt. But Donovan Peoples-Jones has really started to show out, and it is starting to be to almost the time where Deshaun Watson returns. And with Deshaun Watson coming back, I'm not trying to shit on Jacoby Brissett because he's definitely been better than I thought he would be. With Deshaun Watson coming back, Donovan Peoples-Jones could get a humongous boost. He truly is the number 2 receiver there. David Bell hasn't really worked out. So Donovan Peoples, he's a rookie, so I'm not saying like he's some garbage can, but you get what I'm saying. Donovan Peoples-Jones is the number 2 guy there. And this matchup up against the Miami Dolphins defense, based upon what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, is salivating. At number 8 to close out the top 8, then we're going to pivot to the final 2 players to be adding for the week. We got Terrace Marshall Jr. of the Carolina Panthers wide receiver going up against the Atlanta Falcons in prime time on Thursday night football. 6% owned on Yahoo. Wide receiver 16.5 PPR last week, and back-to-back Michael Jordan 96-97 games with 6+ targets in week 9 up against the Bengals in Cincinnati. 3 receptions on 6 targets for 53 yards and a touchdown. Now, the issue with Terrace Marshall has nothing to do with Terrace Marshall because he has looked good. The issue is who is going to be the quarterback in week 10. Who's going to be the quarterback? Because Sam Darnold could be the quarterback. PJ Walker got benched for Baker Mayfield, and Baker Mayfield looked good. Again, it was kind of garbage time. So who's going to be the quarterback? Is it going to be Walker? They're going to go back to him? Are they going to go back to Baker? Or are they going to go with Mono Man Sam? Regardless of who the quarterback ends up being, I do think Terrace Marshall is exciting in deeper leagues because the matchup up against a bad Atlanta Falcons defense. But obviously, there's a lot of factors where things could go extremely wrong here. At number 9, we move to Marcus Mariota, quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons, going up against the Carolina Panthers in Carolina. 33% owned on Yahoo. Quarterback 22 last week. Shit the bed big time up against the LA Chargers. 12 completions on 23 attempts for 129 yards, no touchdowns, 5 rushes for 24 yards. But the last time these two teams played, the Falcons went up against the Arizona Cardinals, was not that long ago. Or not the Arizona Cardinals, the fucking Carolina Panthers, I apologize, was not that long ago. It was in week 8, 2 weeks ago. In that game, Mariota fucking cut him up, carved him up like a Thanksgiving turkey. 20 completions, it's almost Thanksgiving, on 28 attempts for 253 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but he had 6 rushes for 43 yards. An exquisite game out of Marcus Mariota. I know this is a boring primetime game on principle, but this could be a high-scoring back-and-forth affair, which has me excited about Mariota's upside this week to close out the top 10. Number 10, another quarterback, Danny Dimes, Danny Fumbles, Danny Stumbles, Daniel Jones, quarterback of the New York Football Giants, going up against the Houston Texans. 40% owned. Daniel Jones and the Giants were also on bye in week number 9, so we got to go ahead and go back to week 8 for his stats. In that game, he had 17 completions on 31 attempts for 176 yards, 6 rushes for 20 yards. He was quarterback 24 on the week, but this week he gets the Texans. The Texans defense is as soft as baby shit. So if there ever was a game where Daniel Jones, we've already seen it this season, he's had big games where he goes crazy and finishes as a top 10 quarterback, it would be this week up against a not so hot Houston Texans defense. Thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below as well as that like button. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. And make sure you check out that offer and bet $5 on any pregame moneyline bet using the link in the video description on DraftKings Sportsbook if you're a new user, and you receive $200 in free bets if your bet wins. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Love you guys all. Hit that outro. Goodbye.